The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor. Everyone in the ballroom turned to stare at my wife, Victoria, standing on the small stage we'd set up for speeches. Her face was flushed, her smile too wide, her hand resting on her barely visible baby bump. "I have an announcement," she said, her voice carrying across the room filled with my friends, family, and business partners. My heart didn't skip. My hands didn't shake. I simply stood there, holding my own glass of champagne, watching my wife of 15 years prepare to detonate our marriage in front of 200 people. "We're having a baby," she announced, beaming. The room erupted in applause and congratulations. People rushed toward us. My mother started crying with joy. My business partner slapped my back. Victoria came down from the stage, accepting hugs and well wishes. But I didn't move, because 3 months ago I'd had a vasectomy, and Victoria had no idea. The party continued around me like nothing had changed. People kept congratulating me, asking when we were due, saying how wonderful it was that we were finally starting a family. I smiled and nodded, playing the role of excited father-to-be. Victoria glowed beside me, her hand constantly moving to her stomach. "We've been trying for so long," she told my Aunt Barbara. "It's a miracle." I sipped my champagne and said nothing. We hadn't been trying at all. In fact, we'd barely touched each other in the past year. She'd claimed stress from her new job as marketing director at Hartwell Industries. Late nights, weekend conferences, important clients she had to entertain. I'd believed her because I wanted to, because after 15 years of marriage, you're supposed to trust your wife. But 6 months ago, I'd started noticing things. Strange charges on her credit card for hotels across town. Text messages that made her smile in ways I hadn't seen in years. Phone calls she took in the other room. So I'd hired an investigator. His name was Thomas Blake, former detective, recommended by my attorney. He'd been following Victoria for 3 months. The photos were in my study, locked in my desk drawer. Victoria with a man I didn't recognize, kissing him outside restaurants, entering hotel rooms, leaving his apartment in the morning still wearing the previous night's clothes. The man was Kyle Harrison, senior executive at her company, married with 2 kids. They'd been having an affair for 8 months. When I'd gotten the final report 2 weeks ago, I'd sat in my study for hours, trying to decide what to do. Then I'd remembered something. 5 months ago, Victoria had suggested I get a vasectomy. "We're getting older," she'd said, "and we've decided we don't want children, right? It would be easier than me staying on birth control." I'd agreed. The procedure was simple, painless. I'd told her about it afterward, and she'd seemed relieved. Except now, 3 months later, she was pregnant. The party wound down around midnight. Guests left with promises to call, to plan baby showers, to be there for us. Victoria's parents hugged us both, tears in their eyes. "We're so happy for you both," her mother whispered. I smiled and thanked them. When the last guest finally left, Victoria kicked off her heels and collapsed on the couch. "That went perfectly," she sighed, rubbing her feet. I loosened my tie, studying her. She looked genuinely happy, genuinely excited about this pregnancy. She had no idea that I knew. "When were you planning to tell me?" I asked casually. She looked up, confused. "Tell you what? About the baby? I just did at the party." "No," I said slowly. "When were you planning to tell me it's not mine?" The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth, closed it, then laughed nervously. "What are you talking about? Of course it's yours." I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo. Medical records from the vasectomy. Her eyes widened as she read. "You had a vasectomy?" she whispered. 3 months ago," I confirmed. "You told me to, remember? You said it would be easier than birth control." Victoria stood up, backing away from me. "But you said—" "You never mentioned." "I told you the day after the procedure," I said calmly. "You were distracted on your phone. You said, 'That's good,' and went back to texting." I could see her mind racing, trying to remember, trying to figure out how she'd missed something so important. "There must be a mistake," she said finally. "Vasectomies can fail. It happens. They can, I agreed. About 1 in 2,000 cases. Want to know what the odds are that yours failed and you got pregnant 3 months later? She didn't answer. I already scheduled a paternity test. I continued. We can do it as early as 7 weeks into pregnancy. You're about 8 weeks along. According to your doctor's records that were accidentally sent to my email. That was a lie. I'd gotten her medical records through the investigator. But she didn't need to know that. Victoria's face went from white to red. You've been spying on me? I've been protecting myself, I corrected. There's a difference. She started pacing, her hands shaking. This is insane. You're accusing me of cheating based on what? A medical procedure that could have failed. I pulled out my phone again and showed her another photo. Her and Kyle Harrison, kissing outside the Grandview Hotel. She stopped pacing. How long have you known? She asked quietly. 3 months, I said. Right around the time you got pregnant. She sank back onto the couch, her head in her hands. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Is it Kyle's? I asked. She didn't answer. Victoria, is the baby Kyle Harrison's? She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I don't know, she whispered. That hit me harder than I expected. Not the affair, not the pregnancy, but the fact that she genuinely didn't know whose child she was carrying. How long has it been going on? I asked. Victoria wiped her eyes, smearing her makeup. 8 months. It started at the company retreat in Denver. I nodded. I knew this already from Thomas's report, but I wanted to hear her say it. Does Kyle know you're pregnant? She shook her head. I haven't told him yet. I thought it was yours. I thought maybe the vasectomy hadn't worked. When did you realize you were pregnant? I asked. 3 weeks ago, she said. I was going to tell you privately, but then your mother started planning this huge birthday party, and I thought it would be a nice surprise. A nice surprise. She'd announced another man's baby at my 40th birthday party, in front of everyone I knew, and called it a nice surprise. What about Kyle's wife? I asked. Victoria's face hardened. What about her? Does she know about the affair? No, Victoria said. And it needs to stay that way. Kyle has a family. I laughed. Came out harsh and bitter. So do I. Or I did. Victoria stood up, suddenly angry. Don't act like you're perfect, Nathan. You've been distant for years. Always working, always traveling, always putting your business first. I built that business for us, I said. For our future. For your ego, she shot back. You wanted to be the successful entrepreneur. You wanted the big house and the fancy cars and the respect. I was just the trophy wife standing next to you. That stung because there was some truth in it. I'd spent the last 10 years building my software company from nothing to $100 million enterprise. I'd missed dinners and anniversaries. I'd chosen business trips over vacations. But I'd never cheated. So this is my fault? I asked. No, she said, deflating. It's my fault too. We stopped being partners somewhere along the way. We became roommates who shared a last name. She moved closer, reaching for my hand. Pulled away. Nathan, please. We can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can figure out whose baby this is and deal with it together. Together, I repeated. You lied to me for 8 months. You got pregnant by another man. You announced it at my birthday party in front of everyone I know. And now you want to work through it together. Victoria's tears started again. I made a mistake. Terrible mistake. But I still love you. You love me, I said flatly. Yes, she insisted. The thing with Kyle, it's just physical. It doesn't mean anything. It means you're carrying his baby, I pointed out. She flinched. We don't know that for sure. The paternity test will tell us, I said. I've already arranged for the lab work. You'll go in tomorrow morning. Her eyes widened. Tomorrow? That's too fast. I need time to think. You've had 8 months to think, I said. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., Precision Genetics Lab downtown. They're expecting you. She crossed her arms. What if I refuse? Then I'll file for divorce immediately and include adultery as the cause, I said calmly. Your parents, your friends, everyone at that party tonight will know exactly why our marriage ended. Victoria paled. Her parents were old-fashioned, deeply religious. They'd disown her if they knew about the affair. Her position at Hartwell Industries would become uncomfortable at best, impossible at worst. She was trapped and she knew it. You planned this, she said, her voice shaking. You knew about the baby before tonight. I suspected, I admitted. You've been sick in the mornings. You stopped drinking wine at dinner. You've been exhausted. The signs were obvious. She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Who are you? The Nathan I married wouldn't do this. He wouldn't spy on me and set traps. The Victoria I married wouldn't cheat on me and pass off another man's baby as mine, I countered. We stood there in silence, the ruins of our marriage scattered between us. Finally, Victoria grabbed her purse. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. No need, I said. I already moved my things to the guest house. The master bedroom is yours. She blinked. When did you? This afternoon, while you were at the salon getting ready for the party. Her face crumpled. She'd been getting her hair done, excited about the party and her big announcement, while I'd been preparing for the end of our marriage. Nathan, please, don't do this. I'm not doing anything, I said. You did this. I'm just dealing with the consequences. Victoria left for the guest bedroom, and I sat alone in the living room of the house we'd bought together 7 years ago. The house where we'd planned to grow old, to raise children, to build a life. My phone buzzed. A text from Thomas Blake. Need anything? I replied, all good. Proceeding as planned. Thomas had done excellent work. Not just the surveillance photos, but the financial records he'd uncovered. Victoria had been spending thousands on gifts for Kyle. Expensive watches, designer clothes, weekend getaways charged to credit cards she thought I didn't know about. Credit cards linked to our joint account. She'd been funding her affair with my money. I documented everything, created spreadsheets, organized receipts, built an airtight case that any divorce lawyer would love. My attorney, Patricia Donovan, had reviewed it all last week. This is one of the clearest cases of adultery I've seen, she'd said. With the vasectomy proof and the pregnancy, you'll have no problem protecting your assets. That's what this was really about, protecting what I'd built. Victoria and I had signed a postnuptial agreement 5 years ago when my company started becoming valuable. My lawyer had insisted on it. Victoria had argued but eventually agreed. The terms were simple. In case of divorce due to adultery, the unfaithful spouse would receive only what they'd brought into the marriage. Victoria had brought nothing. She'd been working as a junior marketing associate when we met, making $40,000 a year. Everything we owned, the house, the cars, the investment accounts, had come from my business. If I could prove adultery, she'd walk away with essentially nothing. Of course, she'd get something. California law would ensure she received some settlement. But it would be a fraction of what she'd get in a standard divorce. Maybe a few $100,000 instead of several million. The baby complicated things. If it was Kyle's, she'd get child support from him, not me. But if some cosmic joke made it mine despite the vasectomy, I'd be financially responsible. That's why the paternity test was crucial. I needed to know for certain. The next morning, I woke at 6 and went for a run. When I returned, Victoria was in the kitchen making coffee. She looked terrible, like she hadn't slept at all. The lab appointment is at 9, I reminded her. She nodded silently. I'll drive you. I can drive myself, she said. I'm sure you can, I agreed. But I'm coming anyway. We drove in silence. The lab was in a modern medical building downtown. A technician named Amanda greeted us with a professional smile. You must be Mr. and Mrs. Chambers. We're ready for you. The test was simple. Blood draw from Victoria, saliva swab from me. The whole process took 15 minutes. Results in 3 to 5 business days, Amanda said. We'll email them to both addresses you provided. Victoria's hand trembled as we walked back to the car. What happens now? She asked. We wait, I said. And then, Then we deal with whatever the results show. She got in the car, staring straight ahead. What if it's yours? What if the vasectomy actually failed? Then we have a different conversation, I said. The next 3 days were strange. Victoria and I lived in the same house but barely spoke. She went to work, came home, ate dinner in her room. I did the same, working from my home office, attending video calls, pretending everything was normal. My business partner, Marcus Reed, called on Tuesday. Hey, congratulations again on the baby news. Big surprise at the party. Yeah, I said. Quite a surprise. You don't sound excited, he observed. Just processing, I said. 40 years old, about to be a father. It's a lot. You'll be great at it, Marcus said. You're organized, successful, stable. Everything a kid needs. I thanked him and ended the call. Marcus didn't know about the vasectomy or the affair. Nobody did. To the outside world, Victoria and I were a happy couple expecting our first child. On Wednesday, Victoria's mother called. Nathan, darling, I wanted to talk about the baby shower. I was thinking we could host it at the country club in about 6 weeks. That's very kind, I said. But let's wait a bit. Victoria's still in her first trimester. We want to make sure everything is stable first. Of course, she said. I'm just so excited. We'd given up hope of grandchildren from you too. Thursday morning, the email arrived. Paternity test results available. I was in my office when it came through. My hand hovered over the mouse for a long moment before clicking. The report loaded. I read it once, then twice, making sure I understood. Then I picked up my phone and texted Victoria. Results are in. Come to my office. She arrived within minutes, her face pale. What does it say? I turned the monitor toward her. She read in silence, her hand covering her mouth. The test was conclusive. I was not the biological father. Probability of paternity, 0%. Victoria collapsed into the chair across from my desk. Oh God, she whispered. It's Kyle's. I nodded. Looks that way. She started crying, deep sobs that shook her whole body. I sat there watching, feeling nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a strange sense of relief. Now I knew for certain. Now I could move forward. What are you going to do? She asked between sobs. I pulled out another document from my desk drawer. These are divorce papers. I'm filing them today. She looked up, panicked. Nathan, wait. We can still figure this out. Figure what out? I asked. You're pregnant with another man's baby. There's nothing to figure out. Please, Victoria begged. Give me a chance to explain everything. To make this right. You can't make this right, I said. You had an affair. You got pregnant. You tried to pass the baby off as mine. There's no coming back from that. She wiped her eyes, smudging her mascara. Does Kyle have to know? I stared at her. Are you serious? You're carrying his baby. Yes, he has to know. But his wife, she said. His family. This will destroy them. That's not my problem, I said coldly. Actually, it's not even your problem anymore. It's Kyle's problem. He made his choice when he started sleeping with a married woman. Victoria stood up, suddenly angry. You're enjoying this. Watching me suffer. I'm not enjoying anything, I said honestly. I'm just tired. Tired of the lies. Tired of playing the fool. Tired of pretending we have a marriage worth saving. I slid the divorce papers across the desk. Sign these. She looked at them like they were a death sentence. And if I don't? Then I file them anyway, I said. But if you sign now, I'll be reasonable about the settlement. If you make me fight for it, I'll use every clause in our postnup to leave you with as little as possible. Victoria picked up the papers with shaking hands. How long have you been planning this? Since I found out about the affair 3 months ago, I admitted. Everything since then has been preparation. Her face went white. The vasectomy. You got it because you knew. You knew I was cheating. I suspected. I corrected. The vasectomy was insurance. If you got pregnant after that, I'd know for certain the baby wasn't mine. She laughed bitterly. You set a trap. You've been playing me this whole time. No, I said. You set the trap when you chose to cheat. I just made sure I didn't get caught in it. Victoria sat back down, the papers in her lap. What about the announcement at your party? You let me humiliate myself in front of everyone. You humiliated yourself, I said. I just didn't stop you. I wanted witnesses. I wanted everyone to hear you claim the baby was mine. So when the truth came out, there'd be no question about what happened. She shook her head in disbelief. Who are you? The man I married would never be this calculating. The man you married trusted his wife, I replied. You turned him into this. Victoria signed the papers. Her hands shook so badly I had to help her steady them. But she signed. What happens now? She asked. Now you tell Kyle, I said. He deserves to know he's going to be a father. She paled. I can't do that. You can and you will, I said firmly. Because if you don't, I will. I have his home address, his office number, his wife's email. I'll make sure everyone knows the truth. You're blackmailing me, she said. I'm ensuring you face the consequences of your choices, I corrected. Kyle had an affair too. His wife deserves to know, just like I deserve to know. Victoria stood up, clutching the signed papers. I hate you. That's fair, I said. I'm not too fond of you right now either. She left my office, slamming the door. I heard her car start a few minutes later, tires squealing as she pulled out of the driveway. I sat alone in my office, staring at the signed divorce papers. 15 years of marriage ended with a signature. My phone rang. Patricia Donovan, my attorney. Did she sign? Yes, I said. I'm bringing the papers to your office this afternoon. Perfect, Patricia said. With the paternity test and her signature, this should be quick. 3 months, maybe 4. That evening, I drove to Marcus's house. I needed to tell someone the truth. He answered the door with a beer in hand, surprised to see me. Nathan? Everything okay? Can we talk? I asked. He led me to his deck overlooking the lake. We sat in silence for a moment before I told him everything. The affair, the vasectomy, the paternity test, the divorce. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression shifting from shock to anger to something like admiration. You knew for 3 months and didn't say anything? He asked. I needed to be sure, I said. And I needed to protect myself. He shook his head. I can't believe Victoria would do that. She always seemed so, I don't know, stable. People surprise you, I said. Marcus was quiet for a moment. How are you handling this? Really? I thought about it. Honestly, I feel relieved, like I've been carrying something heavy and finally put it down. That's healthier than I expected, he said. I thought you'd be devastated. I admitted. 3 months ago when I first found out, I was a mess, but I had time to process it while gathering evidence. By the time she announced the pregnancy, I was already done grieving. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings. Victoria moved out of the house and into a small apartment across town. She told Kyle about the baby, and according to sources, his wife had filed for divorce immediately. Kyle and Victoria were now navigating their own mess while I finalized mine. My mother called, confused about what had happened. Nathan, sweetie, Victoria's mother is saying you two are separating? What about the baby? I've been dreading this call. Mom, Victoria and I are getting divorced, and the baby isn't mine. Silence. Then, what do you mean it isn't yours? I explained everything, the vasectomy, the affair, the paternity test. My mother listened, her breathing getting heavier. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. That woman, she finally said. How dare she announce that at your party? How dare she let everyone think? It's okay, Mom, I said. It's handled. It's not okay, she said firmly. We all congratulated you. We all thought, oh, Nathan, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry, I said. None of this is your fault. She started crying. I raised you better than this. You deserved better than this. The divorce was finalized in 3 months, just as Patricia had predicted. Thanks to the postnuptial agreement and proof of adultery, the settlement was minimal. Victoria received $200,000 and her car. I kept everything else, the house, the business, the investment accounts. She tried to negotiate for more, claiming emotional distress and years of supporting my career. But the evidence was overwhelming. The affair, the pregnancy, the lies. Patricia had demolished every argument her lawyer made. On the day the divorce was finalized, I felt nothing. No joy, no sadness, just a sense of completion. One chapter of my life had ended, and a new one was beginning. I sold the house a month later. Too many memories, too much history. I bought a modern condo downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Smaller, simpler, exactly what I needed. Marcus helped me move in, joking about my new bachelor lifestyle. "You know what this means," he said, unpacking boxes in my new kitchen. "What?" I asked. "You're officially a cautionary tale. Every married man in our circle is going to hear your story and panic." I laughed. Maybe they should. Maybe they should all get vasectomies just to be safe. 6 months after the divorce, I ran into Kyle Harrison at a restaurant. He was alone, looking significantly older than the photos I'd seen. He spotted me before I could leave and walked over. "Nathan," he said awkwardly. "Kyle," I acknowledged. We stood there in uncomfortable silence. Finally, he spoke. "I owe you an apology." "You owe me nothing," I said. "You gave me an exit from a marriage that was already dead. If anything, I should thank you." He blinked, surprised. "That's not the reaction I expected." "What did you expect?" I asked. "Anger? A fight? Something like that," he admitted. I shrugged. "I was angry. 3 months ago I wanted to destroy you. But now, I'm just grateful it's over." "Victoria told me you trapped her," he said. "With the vasectomy and the test." "I protected myself," I corrected. "There's a difference." He studied me. "You knew about us for months and didn't say anything. That's pretty calculated." "You slept with my wife for 8 months and got her pregnant," I replied. "That's pretty stupid." He flinched. "Fair point. How's the baby?" I asked. Kyle's expression softened. "He's healthy. Born 3 weeks ago. We named him Tyler." "Congratulations," I said. And surprisingly, I meant it. Whatever anger I'd felt toward Kyle had evaporated. He was just a man who'd made bad choices like Victoria had. Like we all do sometimes. "My ex-wife isn't handling it well," Kyle said. "The divorce, the custody battle. It's been ugly." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. He laughed bitterly. "Are you? I destroyed your marriage and mine. I thought you'd be celebrating my misery." "I'm not that petty," I said. "Besides, you didn't destroy my marriage. It was already broken. You just made it obvious." We stood there a moment longer, 2 men whose lives had been upended by the same woman. "For what it's worth," Kyle said, "Victoria and I aren't together anymore. We tried for a few months after Tyler was born, but it didn't work." "Because affairs rarely do," I said. He nodded. "Turns out the excitement of sneaking around doesn't translate to actual compatibility." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. A year after the divorce, I was featured in a business magazine. Bouncing Back: How One CEO Rebuilt After Personal Crisis. The article discussed my company's growth, my new investment strategies, my plans for the future. It mentioned the divorce only briefly, focusing instead on my professional achievements. But the message was clear. I'd survived. I thrived. I turned a personal disaster into motivation for greater success. My company had grown by 40% in the past year. I'd launched 2 new products and acquired a smaller competitor. The work had been therapeutic, giving me something to focus on besides the wreckage of my marriage. I'd also started dating again. Nothing serious, just casual dinners and conversations. It felt strange after 15 years with Victoria, but also refreshing. Getting to know new people, discovering new interests, building new connections. My therapist said I was handling the divorce remarkably well. "Most people in your situation would be more traumatized," she observed. "I processed it while it was happening," I explained. By the time the divorce was finalized, I'd already done my grieving. She smiled. That's emotionally intelligent. Calculating, but intelligent. 2 years after that birthday party, I hosted another celebration. This one was smaller, just close friends and family. No surprises, no announcements, no drama. Just a quiet dinner to mark turning 42. My mother cornered me in the kitchen. "You look happy," she said. "I am," I replied honestly. "Happier than I was 2 years ago." She hugged me tightly. "I'm proud of you, for how you handled everything, for protecting yourself." "You taught me that," I said. "You always said to trust but verify." She laughed. "I don't think I meant getting a vasectomy as verification, but it worked." After everyone left, I stood on my condo balcony looking out at the city lights. I thought about Victoria wherever she was. Thought about Kyle and baby Tyler. Thought about the life I'd planned versus the life I was living. They weren't the same. The planned life had included children, grandchildren, growing old with Victoria in our big house. The actual life was simpler, lonelier in some ways, but also freer. I'd learned important lessons from the whole experience. Trust your instincts. Protect yourself. Don't ignore red flags. And most importantly, know your worth. Victoria had bet that I'd be too trusting or too proud to investigate. She'd underestimated me, and that miscalculation had cost her everything. As for me, I'd lost a marriage, but I'd gained something more valuable. The knowledge that I could survive anything, that I was stronger than I'd thought, that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing that ever happened. I raised my glass to the city lights, to new beginnings, to lessons learned the hard way. The past was behind me. The future was mine to write. And this time I'd be the only author.